And we are recording. Welcome, everyone. Today we'll be speaking with Greg Martinelli. He's author of A Season for Sales, Your Guide to Ag Sales Success. And before we officially welcome Greg, I want to first remind everyone of a few logistics. The call is being recorded, and you will receive a link to the recording after the call. Please mute yourself on your end so as to avoid any background noise. We have you muted on this end, but that's just an extra precaution. Please find your chat button. Normally down at the bottom of your screen, it'll be a little bubble with, sometimes it has 3 dots in it and sometimes it doesn't. Today mine doesn't. We promise to end the call around noon or shortly thereafter so we can all get back to business. If you have any questions, please type them into that chat box and we'll make sure we get your questions answered. So welcome, Greg. Greg made the transition from office manager to sales territory manager over 25 years ago. The transition was a necessary move to learn more about his industry for future advancement and a way to stabilize from relocation. Expecting to be there only a short time, Greg found a true passion in life. After a quarter century of sales management, and training workshops, Greg launched his own sales training and coaching service. Along with that, he recently published his first book, A Season for Sales. So thank you, Greg, for being here today.
Thank you, Kathy, for having me on today. I'm excited to talk to people about something I love to do and love to be a part of. So hopefully we can help the audience and talk a little bit about how a book can do that. So looking forward to it.
Awesome. We originally met through NSA, the local chapter of the National Speakers Association. And if you want further information about NSA, just reach out to me after the call and I'll make sure you get that information.
Sure.
So, Greg, one of the things I know that you and I have talked a lot about is when it comes to selling, what are we really selling?
Well, you know, you're always out there. The very first layer is you're selling your product or services. That's always, you know, I'm going out there to sell whatever it is. It doesn't matter. But eventually, the longer you're in sales, you realize that the real sale, the real ability to sell and be effective long-term and build a territory where customers love you is to sell yourself. And the first step of that is trust. People need to trust you and the products that you represent, your company. And so you're using your reputation and how you work with customers to sell them on the fact that what you do is worth investing their time and their resources and their money in. Because there's plenty of people who do whatever we do. So all the people I can see on here, you're all small business owners, probably like myself, and you realize that there's somebody else that sells, there's somebody else that does sales training. There's tons of them. You Google sales training, you'll find tons of them. So they need to know that you're the go-to person for that.
So what I've heard you talk about also in the past is it doesn't matter whether you're selling, corn chips to the local grocer or, the row of corn out back to the manufacturer. We talked about trust. What are some ways that we can start to initiate that level of trust no matter what it is that we're selling?
Sure. And I did a long journey on trust for personal reasons. I had some things go on in my personal life and I thought, how do I do this? And I realized selling involves a lot of trust building. And so I went out and I looked at the Speed of Trust with Stephen Covey's operation. I think it was actually his son, Stephen, that did it. But there was a couple of them. And I found a model called the trust model. If you Google trust model, it'll probably come up. But it's based on 3 factors. And it's credibility. And that's kind of the first wave. If you don't have the credibility, so if you're a doctor and you're not licensed, the bedside manner is not, hopefully isn't going to matter. So I think the first thing is you got to have the credibility. You got to know your craft and know what you're promoting. And that's why I think it's best for people, and you promote that, to write about and to do your business on what you know. And then the next one is reliability. So you have to be credible and reliable. We've had some really smart people in my field of agriculture who you couldn't rely on them because they were absent-minded professors who, didn't remember to do what they were supposed to do. I mean, the greatest person that doesn't get back to you still doesn't work. And so then the bottom line is having a self versus others orientation. That's kind of like the denominator of the equation. And so as all humans, we have a little part of our brain that can tell, is this person out for their best interest only or mine? And in sales, we are immediately viewed as having our commission checks at our or our products sales as our goal in life. And if you can tamp that down just a little bit and try to help the person first, figure out how your products can help them, you'll build that trust with he or she is not just here to sell the book or to give the speech or to coach me or whatever it is that you're trying to sell. They're here to figure out how their products might help me better get to my destination. And so that's a key point.
So you brought up the concept of having a book, and I know you spent many years in sales, I mean, as a speaker,
Sure.
before you had your book.
Yes.
And I know some of the people on the call today are starting to tiptoe into that arena of being
Sure.
a speaker. Some are doing a very good job in that arena. And then others, it would be a new adventure. So
Sure.
tell us a little bit about how you got into speaking, and then later on we'll talk about how you decided to add that book to the equation.
Absolutely. Always some reason loved doing it after high school. I didn't, prior to that, I was like everybody else. It was the top of my list of things I didn't want to do. For whatever reason, I got into it. I enjoyed it as part of my job, and always admired speakers, the big ones, the Wayne Dwyers, the Zig Ziglars, the people that could go up on stage and do that. I always thought I really would like to do that. So I got my original start of technique by force. I had to do it as part of being a salesperson for a company. I would do customer meetings, but also I cut my teeth in Toastmasters. I joined, I was in there for about 10 years, and you can bounce around and get a good Toastmasters. I had a really good one in one location and we moved someplace. So that was kind of where I got and when I left my job and formed a sales training, coaching, speaking service, I went, like many of us, I Googled 4 years ago and looked, and hey, there's an actual thing called NSA, a speakers organization. And so I went to a meeting, fell in love with it. They had great speakers, great topics, and you and I met there. And that kind of led one thing to another. Pretty much every accomplished speaker that came through said there's a couple things they would do. And one of them was always, I would write my book sooner and not wait. And I really love the idea. It's done is better than perfect. And you probably have a better way of saying it, but it's basically, you can sit around and keep writing and writing and writing and perfecting your book. And I've got sister-in-laws, one's a librarian and the other ones, they're very good at writing, but they never publish. They never finish it because they always think they don't want to make a mistake. They don't want to, and we've got
People
some.
will know what I think if I publish it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's putting a lot out there. It's putting yourself out there. You're going to get some ridicule from family. Like, I'm the youngest of 6 kids. And they're like, what are you writing a book about? What could you possibly say? We know who you are. What do you
Yeah.
get to say? We don't want to hear from you,
Right.
and that's kind of things that you run into, and why people are sometimes hesitant to go to that next step. They'll get on the computer and put notes down, but not take it. And I think that was one of the great things that you promoted, and other people like yourself, the promoter, was get it done, take the next step, put it on your Outlook calendar. What's the next step going to be?
Right. So once you had your book in hand, I know you have found some creative ways to help sell that book. From tell us a little bit about that, from your website to, I mean,
Sure.
when you're speaking, you can sell them at the back of the room, but
Absolutely.
you're not necessarily speaking right now.
Yeah, I went down, I looked at it as I'm going to use it as a marketing tool. And so, early on, everybody, we're all people that have great things to say, but there's other people who have publishers who publish and sell books to make a huge profit. So mine was going to be more along the lines that it's a credibility piece that this person put the book together. And it really is one of those things where people look at you a little different topic. When I say, hey, I'd like to come in, can I have some of my books in the back of the room? And that they really consider it different. I had several companies, because my topic is training, I've had several of my customers reach back out to me and said, hey, would you send me 30 of those books? I want to get everybody a copy of your book. And then I've recommended that they use them if they don't want to hire me and pay the huge money to bring me in and do training. They could take the book, give it a copy, and use it as a guideline for read a chapter, come back and debate the chapter as it does it fit with this group. My book is particularly designed in segments of their career. So it's early, it's the seasons, which you helped me name. I was into the freshman, sophomore, junior, senior years of selling. You said, you're in, so that's one of the areas you helped me name it. So that was cool. And it's called the seasons. And the seasons are as you get older. And so they can take their sales teams and break them up and say, you older folks, you can read the winter and talk about reinventing and retiring or whatever you're going to do. And in the middle, you can talk about and so I think that was a creative way to get people to use the book just slightly differently. As you know, and you and Jack, so those of you that don't know, Jack and Kathy, her husband, are a team. Jack does a lot of the mechanical stuff with the book once you work with him. And I quizzed him to no end about how to sell it through Kindle and Amazon and myself, but through Kindle. And there's all these different, and it was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed it. I put a little spreadsheet together, but it's kind of my style.
Some people like spreadsheets. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It said, I make
more
X
power
amount.
to you. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was just an interesting way to know, okay, if I promote it this way and so forth. You can see in the back, there's a box of books with envelopes. I enjoy it. I put it on, I get most of my sales through either back of the room or it's in my weekly blog. I only send one blog article a week and it's on my website. So I spent a little bit for a guy to put it on my website. I could have probably done it, but he just did it really fast for me, built a little thing. And for, I don't know, a couple $100, he put together a way to sell it off my website. And I get most of them through that. And I would tell you it's the revenue off of it is very low compared to the amount of endorphins it releases when I see the email from PayPal or Stripe that you made $8 today. You're like, oh, wow. It's an
well, and that's one of the conversations that we had, because once someone starts to work with us, we explained that Amazon's going to keep the greater portion of your book of your sales when it sells. Right. They keep 55% plus the cost to print the book. So the example I always give is, not that we would sell your book for $10 on Amazon, but because I like easy math, Amazon's going to keep 55% of that $10, which is $5.50. Let's say it costs $2 to print. So now they're keeping $7.50. And so by the time you get any kind of residual compensation, you're getting the $2.50 out of that $10 sale. But whereas if you're selling it on your website, you're able to buy your books at cost, and you have the mechanics and the time right now to be able to fulfill those orders yourself. So you're basically the manufacturer, you're the distributor, and you're the retailer.
Absolutely.
All mixed in one.
The other area that I've used it, I think it's important to point out, because I don't know what all the businesses are that are on here, but I'm assuming some of your businesses are not writing books and selling books. So for mine, it's again mentioned it's sales training. And so when I send, my customer that writes the check is the VP of sales or owner, depending on the size of the company. They get solicited a lot by phone, by email, and by LinkedIn. And that's how I solicit their business as well. But there's very few people who are specific to my industry who send them a book about what I do. And so I use that. I sent out probably 30 complimentary copies direct. And in today's environment, I can find the VP's address in about 2 minutes of, it's all over their website. And I can get a book directly to them. And so reaching back out to them after I've given them what is a nominal $18 total retail price, $19.99 with shipping, it's a different phone call. It's like, well, I guess the guy went to enough trouble to send me a book. And they may love the book. So it's been a very way to stand out differently for the other side of, for the stuff that really generates the revenue, which is training.
So I saw someone someone I follow on LinkedIn and happens to be an author here in St. Louis. Um, One of the things that she did recently was in in order to try and get into a corporate level environment, in corporate HR environment, she sent them, she was saying, if you're interested in learning about, ABC, let me send you my books for free. Just let me know how many you need, how many people are on your team, how many managers are on your team. She did give
Right.
it a limit, and she sent it to them for free. I mean, her goal is to have them invite her into that environment to teach a unique way of management.
Absolutely. I mean, it's they get in a hard copy book. I know there's a few that have asked for business books. The web audio would be great, but not too many of them ask them for Kindle. But a hard copy book with the ability to kind of flip through and skim it and see what you're all about. And hey, this we ought to
Mhm.
dig into this a little further. This has got some merit to it, and it's a little different approach. And again, it was a great. I did the same thing. You uh, recently I had somebody who bought 30 of them and then asked me to send two more, and I sent the two more free. He said, "Hey, you never
Right.
invoiced." Yesterday, he sent me an email back. He said, "You didn't need to do that. My daughter's an author and all this." He's like, "Well, I'm going to recommend you in our newsletter that goes out to about 500."
There you go.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, two books, which is about, as you mentioned, is probably $4 a book by the time you get it here, print and all
Hmm.
that. I mean, for $8, you could spend $8
That's a
a month.
good investment. Terrific
Absolutely. Yeah.
investment.
Yeah. Very
Yeah, I
much so.
know. We get a lot of questions about sales and marketing, and so that's why during the summer we're inviting people in like yourself to talk about the
Sure.
sales side of business. Now, have you found have you moved any of your like speaking, what's the word I'm looking for? When people hire you to speak,
Sure.
normally you would be in front of a crowd. Have you moved any of that to the Zoom environment?
I'm like like if we open, so most of the people said let's take it from, so I launched the book in February, as you know, and of course March it
Hmm.
we locked down. So it's been good for people saying, hey, while you're kind of hanging around at the home office, read the book. As far as the speaking crowd, I had 3 events in February that it went over really well. On the Zoom side, we have not, the ag industry has not said we're going to do everything. The virtual stuff has become less. They're just about getting to where they're going to start doing that for big meetings.
Right. Well, and I would think I guess the end consumer, I'm not sure what portion your end consumer would be that are farmers. They may not be as technology. I mean, they probably know how to get on the internet, but they may not
Yeah,
use it as much as your
right.
corporate sales kind of people.
Absolutely. It's right. And I just finished an article for a magazine on how to, because we used to have a lot of meetings, producer meetings,
Hmm.
customer meetings, which is farmers coming in, and we just quit. Everybody just stopped doing that. And so now I'm saying, hey, if this is the new normal, you're going to have to figure out how to do some form of a comment like this, a live with a
Hmm.
recording, and they can at least get an email that says click on this and listen.
Right.
And
So
so there's a lot of
you just mentioned that you just finished a magazine article. Do you think that came about from them knowing about you and your book?
it. I wrote for them for quite a while, but I did get on a different one, not the one I write for there.
Hmm.
I got on a different podcast about 3 weeks ago for the book
Hmm.
purposes. They were like, we're gonna talk about you and what you do, but it was a theme of the book behind it, because again, it was just unique. There's nobody that really wrote a book quite. That's something I would encourage people, is try to figure out what is your unique. So the uniqueness of my book ties to my selling advantages. So the reason I tell people to hire me, so if somebody says, hey, great, why should I hire you? I specific to ag, and I've been through the longer stages of it, not the brand new sales techniques. So my book is about the long length of the career and specifically all about ag. So if your strength is, I don't know, whatever if you said, hey, why should I hire you, Kim or Phyllis or Jim or Jennifer or Bernie or 636 area code. Why should I hire you? And you said, this is why you should hire me. That should probably be a base topic of your book, if you think about it. So, for me to write about, I don't know, something ag related would be great, but I wrote about now I can, when I'm up there talking about the career and how things change when you have to learn about selling when you're, your middle age is different than when you learn about it when you're 23, because people treat you different and all that. That's in the book and can be you can reference back and forth. It doesn't sound like you're trying to sell a book. It sounds like you thought enough of that topic that you wrote a book about it.
Right.
It's like you wanted to be an expert enough and you wanted to pass that message on along. It's important enough for you, that message, that you wrote a book about it. Different than, hey, I want to sell books, so I'm going to write on something I think will sell. It's just a little bit of a twist.
Right. Fill the need. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Figure out what the need is and fill the need. So I know on the call today we have Jennifer. I know you are I wish I could say it as eloquently as you do. I'm going to unmute you here. I would call you a novelist. Tell me how you introduce yourself to Greg.
Hi, Greg.
Hi.
I'm Jennifer, and I write the story of Brie MacLeod. She's a modern-day shaman of Irish and Scottish lineages. And so I write what I call mystical fiction. I'm also a shamanic minister, shamanic practitioner, Chinese medicine practitioner, and energy healer, too.
Wow.
Terrific.
And I know you write, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you write, are you writing in your own set of books, self-publishing, or are you writing for a magazine?
Primarily, so as a fiction writer, I write primarily my own novels. I write, like I said, I write the story of Brie MacLeod. It's a series right now. I've just published the 3rd book and I'm working on the 4th. I also write nonfiction, mainly shamanic pieces and Celtic mysticism. And those I write, I've had some of them published in various magazines and journals. I also publish on my own blog and through my own newsletter as well. And I'm about to bring out my first nonfiction book that is focused on Celtic mysticism as well. I haven't thus far done outside of that a lot of publishing in magazines and journals, but I have done online magazines, both for my healing practices. I've written articles for that as well, and for Celtic mysticism too.
Yeah. Terrific. Thanks for being here again, Jennifer.
My pleasure. Thanks for being here.
Yeah.
You too.
So we have some people on the phone. Phyllis, I was going to give you a chance. Let me unmute you on this end. I think you're muted on your end.
Yeah.
There we go. If you wanted to, although we met you earlier before most of the people got on the call, if you want to just quickly introduce yourself also.
Hello all. My name is Phyllis Thaser. I am on the Have Husband Will Travel program, which means I have a husband that has moved me across 8 different states and China one time, and we're getting ready to move back to China. Now, what I do is I'm a medical speech pathologist by background. However, I have been a Toastmaster for years, introduced to a lot of things via Toastmasters speakers. I was in NSA in Boston. Then we moved in too much, and I didn't go back into NSA too much. What I've found is I'm great at talking, lousy at getting stuff down on paper and getting articles out, et cetera. I want to be a better writer, whether it's starting with simply articles and getting it out there and learning more about it, as well as setting up. I have my own I do accent pronunciation presentation training for international professionals. I started out with physicians who found themselves wanting to go on speaker circuit and couldn't get hired back after their first attempts. And so what I've had people tell me is write down your strategies. I work with a lot of international professionals, and I have a unique set of strategies I use with them as opposed to many of your other accent trainers.
Good.
Terrific. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'm glad you could be here.
So I simply want to learn how to write better and write consistently.
Awesome. We will have people on here that can help you do that.
Okay.
Thanks for being here. And I know we have some people who have called in and who have not shared their video, and that's okay. If you're not sharing your video and you would like to introduce yourself, if you could turn your video on, and we'll make sure that you get a chance to introduce yourself. And the caller, I'm sorry, I do not. Hey, Bernie, let me unmute you. So you can tell your story much better than I. Take a couple minutes to introduce yourself, give Greg a better idea, and the rest of us a better idea of who you are and what you're doing lately.
Sure. Yes, I was multitasking, so that's why I shut down my video.
Zoom is great for that. Yeah.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. So my name is Bernie Frazier. I am a speaker, author, and career strategist or career coach. Spent a number of years in corporate recruiting, leading teams, which evolved into coaching over time, and had actually started about 7 books. Yeah, underachiever here. But I had known Kathy for several years and always knew that whenever I could really get the right book, that I was going to reach out for her help. And so glad I did, as I'm sure, everyone else who's worked with Kathy and Jack feel the same way. But I published my book December of 2018. And I was literally, part of what I was doing, I'm ashamed to say this, I was like, how many books have I sold? And so I was going back through my tracking to see how many I've sold since then. But I do speaking, Greg, I think like you, and obviously, you know that some of the things have been put on hold as a obvious result right now. I've done a number of things through Zoom and, have a couple of things coming up even through Zoom. But I think like you, I've sold, books and the back of the room. Some speaking engagements, they've purchased books for the audience as well. My biggest one was 100 books for a group. And so, that's kind of who I am.
Excellent.
Thanks for being here. And I know you have walked into NSA a couple times here in St. Louis, and they've now gone Zoom, virtual. So perhaps we'll see you on one of
everything and everyone. I'm sure
everything.
We're all about out just about. So
yeah,
one key point on, you talk about selling in the back of the room. My kids are in their 20s, and you can't imagine how impressed they are when I whip out my Square and I plug it into my phone, slide a card, and I'm like, you kids know nothing about, and I get the payment on, I think it goes to PayPal, and like, Dad, who taught you how to do that? But I think it's that part, like I said, it's not very much revenue, but the fun you get out of that, just that little bit of, it's really cool. But that was and it was a very easy component. So people that are, when they saw about selling from the back of the room, and you sound like you're getting registers and ringing things up and cash change, most of it's been some form of I use Square. There's other, I think.
Yeah. I'm the same way. I have a Square, the one with the chip, so you insert it now, and
sure.
that
makes life easier. Yeah,
it is. It is a lot easier. But I was sitting here tickled when you mentioned, because you can purchase my book also through my website, and it's Amazon and everywhere else too. But it's something I get the notifications, immediately, of course, because I have to do the fulfillment. Right. And it is that little tingle you get when you're
like, oh, somebody likes me today.
Oh, I know. It is. It's better than a like.
Exactly. And I'm putting the little label on. I have 2 that I need to send out now. These are free though, because when I work with clients, I usually give them a complimentary copy. But it's something about that fulfillment, process that you're getting the message out to others. So I could appreciate what you were saying.
Yeah, when you said that. Absolutely. And you can put you can. I sign everyone up. Like I said, at the most, it's 1 or 2 a day kind of a thing, and I'll build them up over a couple of days. And I can sign one. I put a business card in and say, best of luck in your selling success, Greg. Does it do anything for you? You never know. But it's just a little touch that that you can put on that.
Yeah. Thanks. One of the things, and I'm curious as to if you, because since you obviously know sales. And I'm curious, have you used, just the autograph piece as kind of an incentive for them to go to your website to buy? Because I've actually done that, for the reasons, when it's coming through Amazon or somewhere else that, you get so much less, not that we're becoming millionaires on it, but I have incented people to, hey, if you order from my website, I can autograph it. And I have a bookmark I stick in there as well.
I probably, and I thought about that. I've actually asked Kathy, I said, is there a place that has like paraphernalia, like bookmarks and all that kind of stuff? And my wife works at Scholastic, and I know they have all these little things for kids that buy books, and I thought that would be a great thing, is to have a little extras that I have not done that yet. I've not promoted one way or the other, but I don't put a link to Amazon anywhere. If somebody asks me, are you on Amazon? Or if they're international, I think Kathy's referred me to, I had somebody in Australia that I think, or South America, they could go through their local Amazon there. But I'm like you, I probably should promote that, we can do autograph copies of some kind, in some form or fashion, if you come through me. I've just kind of left it. My website is all through me. If it goes to my website, it goes to me. It never leaves. And that was one part about setting up the website that I referred back to Kathy. Kathy or Jack kind of geared me and said, no, because at first I was like, send everything through Amazon. And then I started doing the math. I'm like, well, this ain't going to be, it's not. And they both said, if you get tired of this, we can always shut that off. You can always turn that part of your website off. And, but it's, for most of it's just not going to be huge numbers.
Right. Unless you have, I guess, like 100 in a day where you're like, holy cow, I've got to fulfill.
Yeah.
Even then, well, I did sell 100, but yeah.
Exactly. And I did have 27 of them. A company asked me, said, hey, would you send them out to the individual salespeople at their places? Or otherwise you got to send them here, and then we got to redo that. And I, of course, like anybody in sales, I said, sure, we can do that. And then I spent all day typing in, and tried to hire my wife, who's on furlough now, but that didn't work. It's just.
Now, the one thing you can do is when you get large orders or even small orders like that, is you can order it straight from Amazon and have it shipped directly to that person as a gift. In that way, that person does not get the receipt, because you'll still only pay the at cost because you've gone in the back door. And then click that little button that says it's a gift, and they've paid you whatever you're charging them, but yet you can ship it straight from KDP Amazon.
For Phyllis, that might be a really good option, because if she's in China and wants to ship a book out of her office, you're going to spend 7 times the cost of the book to ship from Beijing to Cleveland.
And Amazon will just bill the end user whatever the shipping cost is.
Yeah.
No print on demand. And the other nice thing about Amazon is, Phyllis, if you're in China and the person wanting your book is in Kentucky, they're going to use the closest printing facility that Amazon has to Kentucky, which is in Tennessee. So their shipping is really only going to be, the $6 or whatever it takes to get the book from Tennessee to Kentucky.
That's, if I can add, that's also a great way to get around customs. I have a lot of readership and students in Canada who buy my books, and so that's been one of my challenges, and one of the reasons why I haven't done self-fulfillment is because then it's in customs, and there's custom charges to the client, to the buyer. So that's a great solution. I didn't know that you could do that. Thank you, Kathy.
Well, and if anyone would like, we can get on Zoom. I can share a screen and I can show you where it is and how to order it. Be happy to do that.
I would love that. But let me ask you this. Is there a way, I guess there probably isn't, but if someone, if it is international like that, or you do have a larger order that you need to ship out, but they want them autographed, there's no kind of way, there's no way around.
Well, now there is a way now. And Ingram just started this in the last 6 months, where you can put a new sheet, a blank sheet in the very front. It's right behind the cover, and you can customize that, and you can do it per book. So you would need to create a piece of art, or we would create it for you, and we would insert it into, I call it a slip sheet. I'm not sure what Ingram calls it right now. Jack would remember. but we've done that for a couple people where they wanted a private note for someone. Of course, there's a charge for that, but the other way to do it is if you just wanted a generic signature, we could add that to the title page. You know, you do a signature, you mail it to me or scan it and email me that scan. And then we add it to your title page and upload that message, and it prints when the book prints.
Okay.
The other avenue that we went down, we didn't do it. It was somebody in Brazil that was, we were looking at a non-printable PDF. So you can, I don't know, Jack has some way he locks it where you can't
You can
print
lock
the
it.
PDF, and so that somebody can't just print. I don't know that too many people would necessarily do that, but it'd be good. It would be another way to get a book to a foreign destination that would have, that would be mail prohibitive to send it. So.
Well, I also want to welcome Teresa. I just unmuted you.
Hello, Teresa.
She's one of our authors, and Teresa will be our guest in July, our guest author in July. And Bernie, thank you for chiming in. You had some valuable input there. Thank you. Some of the other people on the call today, you know, there's a synchronicity here, Greg, with you and Kim Carr.
Yeah.
Kim, if you want to make a comment, go ahead and unmute yourself. But if I can explain that, Kim, oh good, you are there. So I'm going to unmute you. Hi, I think you need to unmute yourself on your end, possibly.
There she is.
Kim is a yeah, I can hear you. Kim is a fantastic photographer, and I just love your photographs. And she has this fantastic sense of humor when you write. And I am, would you call me a cow parent, like a godparent to Macaroni? A new calf in your herd. And
Nice.
your farm is out in the Wentzville area, out that way?
I'm an hour to Columbia or an hour to St. Charles, so I'm in between. I'm like north of Herman, about a half an hour north of Herman.
Oh yeah,
So I've
sure.
got 20 acres, and
sure.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and
I've got 20 acres and a variety of livestock. So.
And the overlap, the fun overlap that I see with you and Greg is he's in agricultural sales, and you're in agricultural photography sales.
Yeah.
And because you've got this whole farm that you run and all your critters running around, but then you also have this fantastic business on the side, which has kind of been put on the side literally right now because you're not able to do your fairs and your art fairs and all that. So tell us a little bit about how that ties a little bit. I know what you do, but.
Yeah, I can definitely relate with Greg. I've got my bachelor's degree in animal science, and I've had my farm for 31 years, but I've always have loved photography, and I've always loved writing and stuff, but about 10 years ago, I started with the photography professionally, and in the last couple of years, I've shifted my focus onto heritage breed farm animals, and so those are old-fashioned breeds of farm animals. A lot of them are endangered, and people think about the rhinos and tigers. They don't think about pigs and chickens being endangered. So that's what my photo focus has been on, is visiting Missouri farmers that have rare breeds. And as a result, I wanted to do a book. And I happened to meet one of Kathy's associates at an art show, and she introduced me to Kathy. And so from that, I now have several book ideas. It's just focusing in and it's starting to do something about that, because I do enjoy writing, and I love combining my photography with that. So my fingers are crossed that I will have several books out in the next couple of years.
One of the tips that Kathy told me early on, as I was trying to sort out how, because mine came from my blogs. I took my blogs and congealed them into the seasons. And so, one of the piece of advice she gave me, and this is helpful for everybody, is to just wander through your bookstore, and maybe you guys already do that. And I spent I spend about 30,000 miles a year on my car. And so I listen to a lot. I go to the library a lot. So I don't read a lot of books, but I get a lot of tapes. I guess books on the CDs now, not books on tapes. I got to call them that. But she said, you know, walk through the bookstore and see what catches your attention. Look for business books and what format you like. So, you know, for you, as you're trying to figure out doing a photo anthology of rare breeds and endangered breeds or whatever you're calling it, you know, you can kind of go down and see people who have done something similar, and do you like this, do you like that, and that's to me, that helped out a lot in how do I want to divide the book up, what do I want it to look like. And I never really thought of the importance of the cover. You know, don't judge it by the cover, but the cover is it's a pretty big piece of the puzzle.
I think it was one of the universities, one of the California universities, they did a study probably about 5 or 6 years ago of how people in bookstores look at books. And so typically you'll see, then they had video footage of people walking up and down the aisles, and they'd stop and they'd look at the cover, and then they turn it over and they look at the back, and then they open it up and they look at the table of contents. And if by then, if they're still looking at the table of contents, they're more than likely going to buy it, is what they found out. Is that, so if you can get them enticed by the visual, and then the content on the back will help sell the book, and then they look to see if it's really for them, and the table of contents will help them determine that.
Well, I think the same thing goes for a social media post. It's the picture and the title gets us to click. And then when we go in, we see it's the 7 things to do, whatever it is. You read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Do I want to read more about 1, 2, or 3?
Right.
And then they go in deeper. And I think the same thing happens with our book. And so as you think about that, for me, a book with a farming picture is rarer than a picture of me in a suit, which could have been a very, you know, that's the typical guy business picture. It's me on the front on stage. And it's like another book like that. And that doesn't entice me to pick it up and look at it. But my crowd is going to be attracting me is in the farming community. They see a picture of a farm on there. They're going to be like, hey, I want to read more about it. So I think.
Well, and that ties the visual. We used the same photo that's on your website. So it connects it all. I mean, we looked at different photos, but that was the one that we all decided, no, this one works best. Let's keep that. Yeah. So I want to remind, there's several people I've unmuted, or you're unmuted yourself. So if you do have any questions, you're not unmuted, please raise your hand. Any last minute words of advice, Greg, that you would give aspiring authors and existing authors on how to prepare now for greater sales once the book is completed?
I think is with the same way that I take people through my training. The very first place is to start is internally who you are and trying to get that message out. But then the second place is who are you selling that? Who is going to be the end user, and what is going to be unique about your approach, and structure the book around that. So if I'm going to go sell somebody, there's 25 people that were selling sheep feed, and as Kim can tell you, she can buy, you know, calf feed from probably 5 different places out in Herman, Missouri. There's, you know, all these. You got to figure out what is our unique approach. What is my reason somebody would not go to them and go to me? And the same thing happens with the book. Not that you're going to stand up on the podium and beat that into anybody, but it's going to give you the confidence to talk about it. Here's what I want to, you know, somebody says, you know, you wrote a book. Like, yeah, and here's why somebody would want to read this versus another book about selling, you know, because there's people like Zig Ziglar and everybody else that's written a lot better books than I have about selling, but they weren't about how to talk to farmers during harvest in the middle of a pandemic. You know what I mean? That's
right.
like, this is a little bit more.
You have really narrowed your niche to
it
where they know that you get them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's thousands of people that we don't realize are out there. But again, for you, and you know, the whole country, Celtic, I assume, is Ireland. There's a whole group of people that have Irish heritage in the United States that didn't get to go to a festival in March. So they're ready to read about Celtic. And so again, how are you going to, that's the last thing I would part with is, who is the audience that's going to read this and get the value from it? And that'll give you the confidence to promote it for yourself. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today. And Greg, I know that you have a gift for,
Yeah, I'd be
you want
willing
to tell
to.
us a little bit about that?
Sure. Anybody that wants to reach out, Kathy's got the contact info she'll put on there. Email, text. I do all this stuff. I even communicate through LinkedIn with somebody. That's maybe another selling strategy. I talk on whatever channel they want to talk on. You reach out if you want a few minutes of coaching on, if you're struggling with something around selling, glad to talk about a particular topic. I'm predominantly business to business sales. I go in and talk to owners of businesses and managers and then train salespeople on talking to end users. But glad to share anything I can help you with. You can reach out and we'll schedule a time to talk. And you mentioned a couple organizations, ICF and NSA speakers. I'm part of both of those organizations. We're all online now. We used to be in person, and we'll be back there someday, I'm sure. So
Right.
welcome to find me there.
There will be an email that goes out tomorrow that has the link to today's recording, and we'll also have Greg's contact information in that email. So feel free to reach out to him or me with any questions. Next month in June, on June, we will be talking with, her name is Jeannie Williams. She's out of the Santa Fe area. She helped one of our authors with some online marketing strategies, and I've invited her to come share some of those ideas with our authors next month. So we'll see you then. Enjoy these lovely spring days, and we'll see you in June. Thanks, Greg. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
It was
Greg.
great to meet
Thanks,
everybody.
Kathy.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.